Hey, it's Captain Bubblebeard here and we're back with another BJJ video. I did say it was one of my loves in life, so I thought we'll come up with another video. This time it's not a tier list, it's something a bit different. As you guys are well aware, I'm the captain of the white belt crew, so now I thought today we'll break down Musumeci versus Bayanduuren's leg injury. I'm one of those weird people who has a daytime job. I know, don't hate me for it. My daytime job is, I'm a physio, so I'm a musculoskeletal physio in Australia. I deal with a lot of sporting injuries as well as BJJ. For my international folk in the US and other parts of the world, I think it's called physical therapist, depending on which region you're at. I thought today we'll break down the match between Musumeci and Bayanduuren, more specifically looking at the injuries, breaking it down, what the injury is, the course of action, surgery versus non-surgery, and the rehab likelihood, how long that would take, and so forth, and depending on what injuries there are, and let's see if we can find the exact points. Sometimes it's a bit tricky to find the exact point of injury. So don't forget to subscribe, like, you know the drip. Let's go.
Never seen a knee bend like that. I'm cringing watching this.
How is he not tapped, DJ? It's probably the quadriceps. I mean, those are some strong quadriceps. You see that, that teardrop muscle? I think.
So DJ is arguably, in my opinion, one of the greatest of all-time fighters. He's right. Quadriceps help with stabilization with the knee, as do hamstrings. These are two joint muscles that cross over the knee joint. These are passive constraints which help to keep the knee happy and provide extra stability for that knee. So sometimes when you tear ACLs, you don't immediately notice it, but the person will. The knee can be quite stable still because the quads and hamstrings are quite strong.
I ain't playing this game. I am not flexible like that.
Bayanduuren's got to take his free leg and start pushing on the hips, create that space, but Musumeci just won't let it.
So as you can see here, that ankle is quite distorted. At this point, I don't believe the ankle's broken, but the ATFL ligament is torn. Whether this is an old injury or a new injury, it's hard to tell. But ATFL provides lateral stabilization of the ankle. So in this case, it's the left ankle that provides that stability. So we're going to let this play out a little bit and see what happens.
Musumeci laced his other leg behind the hamstring there.
So at this point, you can see the MCL's torn. I wasn't able to find the complete point at which it was torn, so I'm sorry for that. But with the MCL, other name for that is the tibial collateral ligament, located on the medial aspect of the knee. So down this side here, so the left knee. This provides stability in the medial compartment of the knee. This provides stabilization in external and internal rotation of the knee. Usually this will rupture if there is too much valgus force, so force going that way, force going inwards. If there is a full rupture, MCL typically often requires surgery, so this can take between 9 to 12 months to recover. So at this point, I think this is where the LCL has gone, or because that toes are pointing that far in. But it's hard to tell. The lateral collateral ligament, otherwise known as the fibular collateral ligament, it limits extension and lateral rotation, prevents adduction at the knee. To tear this ligament requires excessive varus force, so going force outwards. You can see with his toes pointing close to 90 degrees, there is no constraints holding that knee together. At this point, I believe the ACL, MCL, and LCL are torn. If there is a full rupture of the LCL, same as the MCL, we're looking at about 9 to 12 months. So this is better than ever to look at how that leg is pointing pretty much into Musumeci's armpit. So at this point, Bayanduuren's knee ACL is torn. So that's torn at this point. There's too much tibial translation, too much internal rotation at that knee for it not to be torn. For you anatomy geeks, the ACL is an intracapsular ligament as well as the PCL. This attaches from the anterior condyle of the tibia to the medial surface of the lateral femoral condyle. This limits medial rotation, prevents anterior slide of the tibia and femur. So you can see that with that rotation, that the ACL and MCL, because the MCL is also a medial constraint, is torn, and PCL, I don't know if it's torn. I'm going to let this play out a little bit. You can see in that video how that ankle folds a little bit. At this point, and it has way too much movement. At this point, I think it's safe to say that ankle is broken. It definitely needs an x-ray. but I couldn't find one on the internet. So regarding the injury, so it's hard to say what fracture he has of the ankle. Typically with a broken ankle, depending on what fracture type, so there's 3 Weber's A, you're looking at between 6 to 12 weeks without requiring surgery. Weber's A fractures during it's classified into, that requires no open reduction internal fixation. That doesn't require any bolts or plates to be put in, as there's no disruption to the talocrural joint, which is your ankle joint. This will typically heal on its own. If it's Weber's B fracture, I'll pop a picture up. This has disruption to the joint integrity. Thus, it means that the joint is unstable and will require plates and pins and the ORIF, as I explained earlier. So this will blow out recovery to up to 6 to 9 months, as bone will take a lot longer, the joint will take a lot longer to heal. So we're going to let this play out a little bit.
Or like Gumby, it's basically just allowing Musumeci to twist and turn and pull and torque and all.
At this point, there's another good example of there being no MCL and ACL. There's no medial stabilization going on. That foot's pointing down. Foot could be broken at this point in time as well, as I mentioned earlier. I guess this is no any time than ever to talk about the meniscus. If I had to bet money on it, it's torn. The cartilage is floating around like there's no tomorrow in that knee. You have medial meniscus, you have lateral meniscus. They're both semicircular, provide stability inside that knee. It's intracapsular, so it's inside that capsule. In a nutshell, that meniscus provides and withstands load-bearing forces, increases contact area for the tibiofemoral joint, and reduces stress on the joint surfaces. And it also provides stability. At this point, they are well torn, so I mean both medial and lateral meniscus. They would both need to be debrided, so there'll be a meniscal debridement via an arthroscope. The surgery is essentially where they go in to the knee and cut out all the torn cartilage. Recovery tends to be about 6 to 12 weeks with this one. So at this point, you're probably wondering why I haven't commented on the PCL. The PCL is an intracapsular ligament as well. It's posterior intracondylar area of the tibia to lateral surface of the medial femoral condyle is where it lays. Limits medial rotation, prevents posterior slide of the tibia on femur. The ligament doesn't tend to tear as often as the others, as the mechanism of injury is quite hard to rupture. I'm not saying it doesn't happen. Usually the PCL is torn at this point. The ACL and MCL are gone as well. I don't know if it's torn, but it's hard to say. We would have to wait on post-fight analysis on that. This is a good point where he lets go of the submission, and you can look at how that ankle moves around. You can see how that ankle was just moving around like there's nothing. That ankle's broken, so that's a good example of how that ankle's broken. It was just moving too far around. Wind it to this point. You can see the frustration on Musumeci's face. He thinks that knee is fucked, and so is the ankle. At this point, as do I. He looks frustrated and angry, and I can't be sure and may be wrong on that reason, on his emotions there. Reason I believe this is the case is he's a good dude from what it sounds like, and from the interviews, seems like a nice guy. He is doing unnecessary, harmful, possibly career-ending injury to his opponent. Whether this be ego or whatever, you can see the frustration and confusion on Musumeci's face on why Bayanduuren has not tapped. And post-fight, Sichitong, I butchered his name, quoted, I heard the doctor said Quantumana's injuries was akin to a motorcycle accident where the knee completely detached, meaning he completely ripped off his MCL, LCL, ACL, and meniscus like nothing was holding that knee together except his muscles, and the ankle was broken. So I think I found good points in that video where they were torn, and good points where we could see that. This is a very serious injury in my opinion. We're looking at least 12 to 18 months off with rehab. I wouldn't be surprised if this was career-ending injury, honestly. I send my best wishes to Bayanduuren, and would love to see him come back. He's an incredible fighter and competitor. I wish him all the best, and good luck with the recovery, and hopefully you can get back quicker than that 12 to 18 months. I'd love to see you back. So that's it for this video. Comment down below on what your thoughts. If you like this kind of video where I break down BJJ injuries, let me know. If so, we will do more. And if you want me to break down any injuries, comment down below. Otherwise, we'll catch everyone in the next vid. Don't forget to like, subscribe. You know the drill. Stay beautiful and look after yourselves.